This live button is killing me. Okay, so now we are live. You got to hit it twice. Um, so this is kind of the first window of the day where you might see smoke. Honestly, I do not expect smoke at this time. Um, if there is smoke, though, it will be white, and obviously that would be significant because that would signal the election of a new pope. Hi, Birchlet. The reason that you would not see black smoke at this time is because the Cardinals typically would have two ballots in the morning, and they don't do the smoke until after the second ballot, except if there's no need for a second ballot because they have elected pope, in which case we would have white smoke. But if there is no pope elected on the first ballot of the morning, which would be, concluding potentially around this time. Honestly, I'm suspecting it will be later, maybe another half hour or so, because of the way that they went late last night. There's a lot of Cardinals, and there's still a lot of rust, right? 80% of them have never participated in a conclave before. But the reality is, this is a potential window. If a pope is elected on the second overall ballot, this first ballot of the morning, then we may well see that white smoke. Again, we will not see black smoke if it happens this morning, at this stage anyways, because they aren't going to do black smoke if there's no pope elected on the first ballot of this morning. They would save the ballots and have another ballot this morning, and then they would either send up the white smoke or the black smoke, depending on the result, at the end of this morning. So this is kind of a supplemental Smokewatch. I have updated the streaming schedule to reflect this, so I appreciate you guys keeping a close eye on things and following along and hopping aboard. But here is another link to that same document that I have been linking somewhat regularly. The schedule is now updated, showing these supplemental smoke watches, because the reality is, if there is smoke at this period, this kind of time of day, that would be white smoke, and obviously that would be very significant, because that would mean that we do have a new pope and would find out in perhaps, within the hour or so, who the pope would be. We do not, to be clear, have white smoke at this stage. But if we do see smoke, it will be white, is the expectation, because if they do not have a pope elected, what they would do for this kind of first ballot of the day is they would hold on to it again to burn later in the day. Good morning, Lonesome Valkyrie. So in light of it being somewhat unlikely that we'll have smoke at this precise stage, because it's still early in the balloting and it's still early on the window, and the fact that I have all sorts of life also needing to go on, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and take a couple minutes and go do laundry. But I will have my own live stream pulled up on my phone here, which got the really annoying Android update. And I will be watching the live stream along with you guys while hosting the live stream. It's going to be a little bit meta, but just that way I can get keep the laundry going and keep the lights on around here, as it were. So off work, but not off duty, as on the Family Matters. But yes, happy to have you guys. If you haven't yet adopted a Cardinal, go to that link that I put in the comments, and there is the tab that shows all of these streaming times to be considering. Basically, we're going to be on Smokewatch for the next few hours effectively. I'm splitting it up into two different sections. We'll actually expected to have a guest here in about an hour and a half. Yes, live stream inception. Yes. I really appreciate the gulls giving us a little bit of variety. If you guys want to name the gulls, that's fine. For today, I think it's probably different gulls than yesterday. I think those other gulls have moved on as gulls do, although frankly, maybe not, because I'm guessing the crowds have snicky snacks floating around that the gulls can swipe. The gulls of Rome are known for that sort of thing. But yes, as hard as it is for me to step away, well, I really won't be stepping away because again, I will be watching my own live stream on my own device while I go get some laundry going. So yes, uh, there we go. So I'll go ahead and turn my camera off. But again, if you have not yet adopted a cardinal, please do so with the attached document if you want, a randomized cardinal for yourself or honestly for a family member. We're just having fun with it. I'm going to start putting asterisks next to the ones that are for folks who aren't actually watching the live stream. So, if one has an asterisk next to the name that's claimed it, just know that you could actually claim that one and I would just bump that one, right? Typically, it's a family member on my end. Or actually, my cat has a cardinal right now. But yes, that'll just give us something else to do apart from watching doves and doing laundry, whatever else you guys are up to. laundry is still a work in progress. Obviously, it's the sort of thing that's always a work in progress when you've got 5 kids. But bottom line, yes, we are still carrying on with the Smokewatch. I'm sad to see our Dell friends have left. I'm glad to see, folks that I'm recognizing from previous streams coming back in. Hey, Glass of Milk. Hey, Trocanero. Hey, Ash. I think you were around before. So, yes, the gang is getting back again. We're getting up into the double digits periodically here. Yeah, just as a reminder, as folks are filing in, it's a little bit of a confusing situation to explain, but bottom line, if they elect a pope on the first ballot today, because they'll do 2 ballots in the morning, then we would see smoke at this time. So if we do see smoke, it will be white smoke. If they do not elect a pope on the first ballot, they will hold off on burning those ballots until after the second vote of the morning. So we could see white or black smoke later on in the morning, at least, in the morning Rome time. So that's kind of the scenario here. That's why we're doing this. Is basically like a supplemental watch. So I have updated the schedule for our streaming. And I actually went ahead and invited a close personal guest. My father's actually on his way over at some point here. So we'll see. We'll chat about some things. He said he's nervous. And yeah, I mean, I get it. I got to remind myself to not pick my nose. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tackle the laundry a little bit more. And yeah, so this is day 2. They officially had their first ballot last night. Usually they'll kind of start the conclave process in. We saw them taking the oaths, which it was very nice. I felt like I hadn't seen any footage of them taking the oaths before, so I think that's a new thing that we were able to have, visibility on that for us. They actually had, cameras inside the Sistine Chapel, but then they all got, kicked out with the extra omnes. So that was when the sequestering really began. So now the only communication will be this smoke. But they did do a ballot last night, last night Rome time, just to kind of, shake the dust off. 80% of the Cardinals, again, are new to this conclave business, having been appointed by Pope Francis. So it actually was a little longer of a wait than expected for that the smoke the first time around last night. And honestly, I'm not expecting much from this particular session. I honestly, not to sabotage the feed itself, and I also have a superpower when I say something, it automatically becomes not true. My wife and I joke about it. But bottom line, if there is smoke at this time, it would be white smoke. So we wouldn't want to miss that. So they do 4 ballots a day from this point on, except for every fourth day. So Saturday, they would take a break. So I do have the conclave schedule, our Smokewatch schedule posted in the comments. So if you scroll up a bit, that's there from 4:37. But yeah, so feel free to follow the Adopt a Cardinal. And I do have a guest, who has responded. And so, we'll be making his way in. It is 4:49 a.m. Eastern time where I am. So exciting stuff. But yes, so I'll go ahead and go work on some more laundry. But again, we are doing the live stream inception. So I will be keeping tabs on my own device, watching my own live stream. And yeah, that's the sort of thing we do here. I'll go ahead and leave my camera on this time. That way, if any dubs pop into my basement studio, you guys will be able to see it. Gulls, I should say. They're gulls. I do have the volume on, right, for the Vatican media? Yes. Okay. Boost that just a bit. appreciate you guys bearing with me. Got to pay the dues, as it were. So yes, laundry is going, and at this stage, it'll be going, doing its thing until I get a guest in here. So we'll have a little bit more interaction then, and then gradually things will build up through the day. I have at least 3 guests confirmed for Smokewatches today. Rain possible. At the Vatican. Interesting. So I'm going to pull up just on my end the AP cam. So inside note for you guys, we did actually have it didn't actually hit like a copyright strike, but we had it seemed like an AI generated copyright claim for like a station that we absolutely did not carry on this feed. It's like if it was the Associated Press, they could have a case because we did have their feed up for a minute. Vatican News they're Vatican News. It'll be okay. But yeah, we had some random like California station, whatever, saying that we were like using their feed, and we're like, if you were also broadcasting Vatican Media's feed, then yes, our feeds would match. So we're pretty sure it's just having a bot review things. So yeah, no actual issue there, but a little bit of a behind the scenes, the things that we get to see putting on these streams and such. So, but yes, so for that reason, fair enough. I will not be showing AP or any other feed. We kind of ruled them out for commercial sake, and plus, I think it's best to get it straight from the horse's mouth with the Vatican Media feed. But yeah, I'm going to be sneaking on the AP off camera here just to see, with some other angles, like we're talking about, the possibility of rain, see what the clouds look like. And obviously, you're welcome and encouraged, if you want to do that as well. Multiple tabs exist. But yeah, keep in mind, you also, of course, can adopt a Cardinal still. Link is in the comments. And by all means, ask questions, because I am a big nerd about this. And I do not tire of talking about these things. And yes, the AP did have ads. So boo, forget that. Yeah, by all means, you can change your adopted Cardinal. Just let me know which one you would like to claim. And if they're available, I'll switch you over. Honestly, the adopted Cardinal thing is, as you may have noticed, partially just to kind of give us something to do as like a side game. I mean, by all means, I've got my cat currently having an adopted Cardinal. So the ones with asterisks next to them are basically like, my kids, my cat, that sort of thing. So those can be bumped if you wanted to adopt one of their Cardinals. They were pretty much random number generator assigned. There is a link to a random number generator, by the way, below the list of the different Cardinals, as well as an automatic tally of how many Cardinals are unclaimed. So if you wanted to plug that into the random number generator and tell me what number you get, then I can count it out and figure out who it would correspond to. But yeah, by all means, that's a little mini game. And of course, there is some incentive there, right? If you adopt a Cardinal and they are elected Pope, then congratulations. You are essentially a Cardinal because you have picked the Pope, and that's what Cardinals do. And so in that case, we will make up a special title for you, get you a red hat in some fashion, and assign you a titular church, because that's how Cardinals get their little care packages. Joseph de Kessel. All right. Is he one of the over 80 ones? Because he's not popping to mine, and I don't pay as much attention to the older ones. Let's see. No, he's he doing on my list? Yeah, no. I might just not be doing very good at alphabetical order. It's tricky sometimes with like the day names. Oh, yep, there he is. Okay. Yeah, he was under Kessel, which I think is how you would normally alphabetize that. So, okay. Yeah, I'll switch that over for you. Anthony, that is a great question. So no, the Cardinals, voting is a long process. This window here is basically where you might see if there is a pope elected on the first ballot of the day, you would be seeing smoke sometime around now. Or they did go late with their first ballot last night, possibly with the Cardinals being relatively new to a conclave. Again, 80% of them, this is their first conclave, and there's a record number of them, right? There's 135 Cardinals in their balloting. So it could be that they are, in the process of having a pope actually elected this ballot. It's just they're not ready to send up the smoke yet. Or it could be that they have not elected a pope with this first ballot of the morning, this is the window where it would be kind of the first ballot potentially completing. But if they did not elect a pope with the first ballot on this morning, what they would do is they would hold the ballots and not do the smoke until after the second ballot of the morning, because they can do 1 to 2 ballots in the morning, 1 to 2 ballots in the afternoon, but they only do the smoke once in the morning, once in the afternoon. But obviously, if they elect a pope the first ballot of the morning, then they're going to go ahead and send up that white smoke and not, wait around for it. Even though that is what they do in the movie Conclave, they wait around after electing the pope. But in reality, this is kind of the time window where if there were white smoke from that first ballot, you would see it now, or we will see nothing. Which is part of why I felt a little bit more comfortable than I normally would stepping away to do laundry, because this is the second overall ballot, so that would still be relatively early in the conclave process, but certainly not unheard of. We've had popes elected on the second ballot, I believe. We've definitely had popes elected on the first ballot, although that's not the case here. We already had the first ballot last night. Last night, Rome time. But yes, so things will kind of build throughout the day, but it's certainly possible to see that white smoke here, and so we would not want to miss it, right? So that's why we are live now, because we are certainly within that realm of possibility. Okay, and Belle, I have updated your cardinal there. He's not one of the ones I had done an episode on yet, so not stick with my mind. I did, for Cardinal Numbers, put out a number of episodes last night / earlier this morning. I got about 20 minutes of sleep. So this will be fun. But yes, obviously kind of doing a bit of a push because, yes, it is 5:06 in the a.m. And I was up until about 4. So yeah, no, bit of an adventure, but hey, I'm off work. This is kind of the Super Bowl for me. And on the family front, hey, I'm doing laundry. I'm picking up things. Yeah. Vice Pope, Mrs. Popular History knew what she was getting into. I would work on my Cardinals database, keeping her up early on in our marriage 12 years ago. So at least I've got the smartphone now, so it's less clickety clack with the laptop. Western Australia. So may I ask, um, have you checked out the History of the Bible podcast with Gary Stevens? Because he's an Australian, and I know I think I got a few listeners picked up when I did a collaboration with him when I was first launching the cardinal numbers side of things. I actually also just collaborated with him a couple days ago. I haven't edited yet for reasons for being busy, but that will be coming out, here in the next little bit. We'll see. Had a number of different collaborations for obvious reasons on a podcast focusing on the Cardinals. I don't even know how many episodes I put out last night. Let's see. 3. Yeah. So there is now an episode for Cardinal Tempesta of Brazil, and then Cardinal Coke, I believe is Swiss, yes. And then the latest, and until the conclave is over, the last of the first judgment rounds, where I kind of gather up the Cardinals that were recently covered and sit down with the guest. In this case, it was John from Prime Time, and kind of give them an initial look, make the call on who's the most interesting to make it onto the round 2 for a deeper dive, longer episodes. And for now, we've got a pin in that. After having made that determination, we do have a Cardinal that moves forward there. I won't spoil it for you since I just put out that episode within the last hour or so. But that is available if you want something to listen to while you're watching the smoke. I know Pontifex side, they are working on some more things there. There's a conspiracy theories episode that I have not been given for editing, and that I have been told that there is some sort of surprise. So, goodness me, I'm a little nervous about that. So Pete Halifax, if I understand, are you suggesting that the Super Bowl is your Super Bowl? I do love a good feast. I've still got my giant block of cheese kicking around, but I don't have appetite build up quite yet this morning. I nearly went to go get Taco Bell before it closed at 3, but I was like, I don't really need that much. It'll open back up at 8. Excellent. Do you have a particular team you cheer for, or do you just enjoy the event? The AP feed does show another gull kind of further away from the chimney, but just off screen, it looks like, from our angle. And of course, their comment section is ridiculous. Yes, so go England. Yeah, I would say that worked out okay. I think the Patriots were got better in that time frame. Although I couldn't tell you where they're at this year. It's been I've been more tuned out of sports than I usually am, and I'm an Ohio guy, right? So it's Buckeyes for me, and that's basically the extent to which I have football loyalties. Theoretically, Indianapolis, just for proximity, and I married a Hoosier. Hey, at least you're honest about it. We all have our embarrassing secrets. What's the topic and what's a Pontifact? All right, so Pontifacts is a history podcast that reviews and ranks all of the popes from Peter to Francis and now beyond. So they have a pun name. It's hosted by Bree and Fry, who, if we do have a smoke pop up here, I will ping them and they will make every effort to pop on. For now, I am kind of running the Smokewatch, kind of related to their Pope Watch segment. In particular, on their show, um, Pontifacts are especially interesting, tidbits about the popes. I am Catholic myself, and so my show is Popular History, which I call history through Pope-colored glasses. And so just kind of look at different historical aspects. I also have a show called Cardinal Numbers, where basically you kind of do the same thing that Pontifex does, reviewing and ranking the popes, but I do that for the Cardinals. So here in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and drop another link. We have a spreadsheet that has the Smokewatch times, where we'll be checking to see, if there's white smoke, that means that the Cardinals have elected a new pope after the recent passing of Pope Francis. And black smoke means there's no pope for relatively complicated reasons. There is not black smoke expected at this time. Basically, they only do the black smoke twice a day, but they can ballot more than that. So this is the time window where they would be having their first ballot. If there is a pope, then we'll see white smoke. If they do not elect a pope on the first ballot for today, then there will not be any smoke. They will hold off on burning the ballots. And yes, they literally burned the ballots to make the smoke, to communicate to the world what the result is. They would burn that after the second vote of the morning if they decide to have a second vote. This is a particularly full conclave. There are more cardinals participating than there ever have been. I think the maximum before was 118. There's 133 now because Pope Francis kind of ignored the theoretical cap of 120, which he can do because popes are absolute monarchs. There's not like constitutional boundaries, right? They're definitely the head cheese of the Catholic Church. So they can decide, effectively what the rules are. They decide, who a cardinal is. The cardinals, of course, are those who have the obligation to elect a new pope when the previous pope dies or abdicates, as was the case with Pope Benedict, who was Pope Francis's predecessor. So if rainbow smoke comes out, that means someone's having a lark, and we might have gotten off the Vatican's official feed. Amen. So there is some interesting history with, those who do not see Catholics as Christians. The history is interesting. Not sure who was here first, but I don't think it's who you think it is, if that's your conclusion. All the discussions of a gay lobby in the Vatican that the late night hosts like to have a ball with. I mean, you look at the Sistine Chapel and tell me that straight men were the only ones working on that. There is still, man, yeah, the AP's comments are blowing up. Shane, I would say you can't go wrong reading and absorbing the Gospels. So focus on that. The Cardinals are allowed certain snacks. So, for example, they can't have ravioli because they might sneak messages in it. And that sounds like I'm making a joke, but that is literally the case. Oh, goodness. Yes. Yes. One of the beautiful things about the papacy is that if you're interested in any sort of part of history, um, there's going to be, as long as you're in the AD times, there's going to be some sort of potential papal connection. So seeing it in Arthuriana, that is going to be fascinating. So you'll have to let me and Bree and Fry know. I know Bree and Fry have their fictional Pope series, so that would be excellent additions to that working board. I feel like I'm missing some Italian knowledge, so I'm going to go ahead and Google Supli. Oh, that sounds good. So basically, tomato corn dogs. Oh, nice. Okay, I am hungry now. I mean, Pope Francis was a Jesuit. The Jesuits are always kind of conspiracy theory fodder. Um, yeah, the Vatican itself, typically draws a lot of interest just because of just a lot of just the complexity of it. There's 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, outnumbering any other Christian denomination. Um, just the history of it, and just the amount of stuff that goes on, um, and the fact that people care about religion because religion does matter. So take that and multiply it across history, and you get all sorts of different things. I have not looked into sort of the Black Pope stuff before, but I have seen it kind of trending, and I do wonder if that's part of what Brie and Fry are working on with their conspiracy theories episode for Pontifex. So we'll see. Like I said, they said that they have some sort of surprise for me, so that'll be interesting. One of the gulls almost hit a camera drone. Oh dear. Yeah, and I mean, the gulls are the moving components, right, of this chimney watch, because literally, the Cardinals are sequestered in the Sistine Chapel, which is where you have that beautiful fresco. I think it's technically a fresco. Art history is not my strength, but the beautiful scenes of the Last Judgment, right? And that is something to keep in mind, as we talk about Christianity and religious themes. Ultimately, this stuff does matter. So, not to be taken lightly. Yeah, genuinely, the Jesuits they have a special vow to basically do what the Pope tells them to do, in particular on where they go in the world for missionary territory. So for a while, actually, in the 18th century, the Jesuits were suppressed just because the secular leaders thought that things had gotten out of hand, and eventually, kind of pressured the Pope, potentially after assassinating one, to suppress the order. There's definitely some conclave tie-ins there, because that was the conclave that was largely split over the question of whether to suppress the Jesuits. Obviously, Jesuits are still with us. They kind of carried on in Russia, and other places outside kind of the fold of the Catholic Church, and eventually, made their way back in after that decision to suppress them was reversed. Oh yes, yes. Lots of people, lots of JP2 fans. My father, who's actually, going to be making his way to just kind of help be a guest on camera, although he's nervous about it. So we'll see if he actually does that. He's a big JP2 fan as well. I think, that role in the fall of communism in particular, well, fall of the Soviet Union, and, different folks have different opinions on different things. But at the end of the day, JP2 was certainly impactful. Yeah, from 78 is when he got elected. So, yeah. He's also the only pope to canonically exist in the Marvel universe, right? Because there is actually a John Paul II official Marvel comic book. I mean, yeah, how you define different terms. I mean, in the end, the apostles held all things in common. We see that in the book of Acts. So, you know, don't run away too far with the labels. But in the end, we know what we're called to do by the words of God, right? The sayings of the Savior. I've got, 8 episodes on just everything Jesus said in my podcast. So certainly taking that to heart is important. Not a Benedict fan. Yeah, there's a there's a goodly contingent of not a Benedict fan people. For me, I mean, I certainly enjoyed Pope Francis. Um, I do, I will miss him. It'll be interesting to see where the papacy goes next. There's been 266 popes, so when the Cardinals reach a decision and that 2/3 majority required for an election, um, that'll make for 267, and we'll find out who it is. Probably one of them. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of them, by the way. So any unmarried Catholic male could be elected. I told my son the other day, like, hey, you could theoretically be chosen as pope. And he was like a little nervous about it. He's like, don't I need to go to like seminary to be a priest? And I was like, well, look, if they pick an 11-year-old to be pope, they're not looking for somebody with experience. They're definitely looking to change it up. So a child should lead them, sort of thing. But to be clear, I do not expect my son or any 11-year-old to be elected pope. But it is theoretically possible because ultimately, while there is a canonical rule of 30 as the minimum age for a bishop, that has been waived before. And right now, the Cardinals have much of the same ability to sort of waive the theoretical rules of the church that the Pope normally would. I did not have John Paul II Memorial Bathroom on my bingo card for today. Oh. And yes, it will be really interesting, who they choose. Because I mean, whoever the Pope is does have an impact on history, whether you like the institution or if we think it's the Antichrist, and there are plenty of people in both camps, right? It's a situation where it is more impactful on the overall sweep of history than most elections. I'm obviously a little biased, right? Being a papal history guy, and also in particular a Cardinals guy. But I think it is fair to say, this is the most substantial, election process that we'll see this year. The popes aren't really in charge of militaries, but they certainly have a substantial sway. Again, 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, outnumbering all other kinds of Christians and having an influence well beyond Catholicism as well. In particular, Pope Francis was strong on kind of engaging those outside the faith. Yeah, there's definitely some bar set pretty low situations, right, in the history of the papacy. John the 12th, Benedict the Ninth. Oh. Yeah, the Pell situation. I mean, there's a reason, when you're talking about things to say allegedly, and in his case, I was surprised at how complete the reversal was in terms of the courts. And in the end, God knows the truth of the matter. And that's kind of the bottom line, right? One of the things I'm curious about is, um, the Eastern Rite Cardinals, because again, as those of you watching the streams know that I like to kind of revisit this particular topic, but it is just because it's so fascinating to me. Not only is there kind of the broad nature and sweep, kind of historically of the Catholic Church as a whole, but in particular, a lot of folks, aren't as aware as they could be, including most Catholics, I would say, that the Catholic Church is not just the Roman Catholic Church. It's not just the Latin Rite Catholic Church, but it's also 23 other sui juris, or that's not for self-governing churches, each with their own traditions, their own dress, their own perspectives. Ultimately, they do still see the Pope as their spiritual head, as the vicar of Christ, kind of running his church on earth. But they have these unique traditions, and there's just such a variety. So, definitely the Eastern Cardinals stand out, right? There's a lot more black, but still the scarlet highlights. So if one of them were elected, it would be pretty interesting. Can someone be desainted? That is a great question. So no. Once someone is canonized in the eyes of the church, that is a fixed thing. And it is one of the few things that automatically falls under that papal infallibility spectrum. I'm not sure exactly why that is the case, historically that kind of developed that way. Now, that said, I should say that's in the case of formally canonized folks. There are cases of, people that the church basically determined maybe didn't actually exist, right? So they'll quietly remove them from the calendar. Or just something about their story doesn't check out as the historians look into it, right? For the last 1,000 years, basically, the saint making process has been, set, but the church is older than 1,000 years old, right? So for the first 1,000 years, you would have all of these different stories about various martyrdoms and a whole lot of miracle stories. And I do think, miracles are possible, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, you don't want to just go around assuming that everything is a miracle, right? You've got to look for the non-miraculous explanations first. And oftentimes, one of the clearest non-miraculous explanations is, maybe this is just a story that someone made up and it's not actually the truth, right? There's lots of untrue stories and rumors out there. So the church does kind of review her own history, right? There's actually a subset of those Jesuits that we were talking about, the Bollandists, that basically their function is to kind of evaluate a lot of these historical accounts of different saint stories. And I'll go ahead and link to Wikipedia. That way you're not wondering how that's spelled. But, they would see a lot of these stories, in particular, if you're familiar with the Golden Legend, that sort of level of saint story. Those would kind of be reviewed and looked at and see like, okay, what's the, is there a historical grounding to any of this, or is this one where we don't necessarily want to keep, say for example, St. Christopher on the official calendar because we don't know for sure that this is actually a historical person that existed. And Gene 4 was also, I guess you could say, uncanonized, unsainted. But that's more tragic because Gene 4 did no wrong. Gene 4 is a dog that was kind of accidentally canonized. Yes. Gene 4 is connected to Saint Roche. If you want to look into that a little more, I believe here's the spelling. And there's my email. Someone was asking for that. By the way, I haven't mentioned this in a little bit. We are doing Adopt a Cardinal. So what that is the Cardinals are the ones who are voting to see who the next pope will be. More than likely it will be one of the Cardinals that will be the next pope. But I'm dropping a spreadsheet link back in the chat that has not only our anticipated live stream schedule for more Smokewatch, as we see, this chimney is basically the way that the Cardinals locked up in the Sistine Chapel communicate with the outside world at this stage. White smoke for they have elected a new pope. Black smoke for, well, not yet. But while we're waiting, if you want to check out that spreadsheet, you can see not only the schedule to kind of plan out, when you want to come check out more. Obviously, at some point they will elect a pope. And on a separate tab on that spreadsheet is the Adopt a Cardinal list of the names of the Cardinals and then the YouTube users or, whatever name was given for the people who would like to adopt these various Cardinals. If you give a name in the chat of a Cardinal, you'll go ahead and you will have adopted that Cardinal. It's that simple, unless someone else has already claimed that Cardinal. If someone else has already claimed the Cardinal, it's not like you lose your chance. You can just pick another one. It's fine. We're just having some fun with it to pass the time while we wait for smoke. Got some clouds going on, so I'll pretend like that's, super fascinating. Not sure what that Savile situation is. Feel free to elaborate. But yes, if you adopt a Cardinal and that Cardinal is elected Pope, then effectively you have picked the Pope, right? Because you picked the Cardinal who became the Pope. And so if you pick the Pope, then you get stuff like a Cardinal gets stuff. So we will get you a special name for the show that you can kind of help figure out what that would be. And a red hat, again, with your input on preferences there. Not really any political plan there, right? It's the red hats are one of the more famous identifiers of a Catholic cardinal. That's been around for a lot longer than modern politics. And then you also would get a titular church assigned to you. We'll figure that out because cardinals get one of the churches in Rome as kind of theirs to care for and guide that flock, typically at arm's length because they're running around with a lot of stuff. But officially they have a church in Rome that they're kind of responsible for, or they're the patron of. Irish Pope. Oh, yes. 420 smoke. Yes. Well, Pope Francis kind of did not make the timing work very well. I guess, 420, depending on the time zone is possible. But in terms of, calendar date, he died on 421. So I think he maybe just intentionally avoided that. Something like that. It is interesting that there's never been an Irish pope. There have certainly been, influential Irish missionaries and saints. Obviously, St. Patrick's a biggie, St. Columba, and a number of others. I Was it Columba that had like the first documented thing with the Loch Ness monster? Gotcha. Yes. Going back to Seville. Yeah, there have been plenty of mistakes made, and yeah, that's obviously was not a good thing. JP2 was the first Polish pope. Yes. Now, granted, Poland's sort of different different shapes and sizes of Poland through the years, right? But yes, I believe it's accurate to just say that JP2 was the first Polish pope. God bless you as well, Shane. How much? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we are theoretically in potential pope time now. Honestly, um, I'm not expecting to see anything for the next little bit, but I also have a knack for being wrong whenever I make a statement like that. So we will continue to stay tuned. What would happen at this stage right now is if there is smoke, it will be white smoke. We're not looking for black smoke just because of the nature of the way that they have this communication set up. Right now, it's early enough in Rome time that we're still not anticipating that they have done more than one ballot. They have the option of doing two ballots in the morning. And if they elect a pope on that first ballot, then they'll go ahead and, put in the white smoke, whatever chemical packet to color the smoke and burn the ballots and send up that white smoke so that we know that a pope has been elected. If they do that on the first ballot of the day. But if there's black smoke, well, they're not going to do the black smoke for the first ballot because they only do smoke 2 times a day. So if there was not a pope elected on the first ballot of this morning, then they will go ahead and hold off on burning those ballots, and they will do either black or white smoke depending on the outcome of the second ballot of the morning, which would be, of course, the third ballot overall. They did have one ballot last night when they got things started, sort of the kickoff run. There have been popes elected on the first ballot. There have been popes elected on the third ballot. Pretty sure there's been popes elected on the second ballot, but I don't know that off the top of my head. Yes, thank you, Chocanero, for getting us some of the specific stats on, like, countries that have had one pope elected. Some of the ones that have had multiple popes are not the ones that you would expect. I think generally they would file the there's been a few North African popes, but defining North Africa in the time period that these popes came from, right during the Roman Empire, was a little bit vague because Africa was the name of a province and not like necessarily the entire continent, but kind of. Roman expeditions into Africa, by the way, is a fascinating thing. But bottom line, there have been multiple popes from Africa that are typically filed under like Algeria or Tunisia, depending on who's claiming. But we don't know exactly where they were from, and they could have been from a few different places. But it certainly would have been the northern parts of Africa for that particular connection, because that was what was under Rome at the time, and it was more specifically the Roman Catholic Church, because there was a little bit of an alliance with empire and papacy at the time. Berber, thank you. Yeah, and I think that that grouping would be spread across a few different modern countries potentially. And then, of course, there's also several popes, as I recall, from Syria is another one that surprisingly has more than more than one on the list. We got some real Pontifex going on in the chat. Glad to be here with fellow nerds. That's why I do the podcast, right? So I can talk at a willing audience. 6. Nice. That's almost as many as they had Syrian wars after the Hellenistic states were collapsing. All right. I'm going to mute myself for a moment. Dad's calling, so I think he's probably at the door. All right, so yes, I do have an in-studio guest who will be joining my own father. So, yeah, he's coming on over at 5:44 a.m.
if you go.
All right. So I don't see the chat blowing up, so I assume we didn't have white smoke while I was out gathering up my father. But
not that I saw. Anyway.
Yeah, so he is with me in studio. He's got mic access. Camera access is a little shakier, but there we go. Yeah, I'm seeing you there. So yes, so this is my dad, Paul.
Gotta figure out how to lean into this thing a little bit. That's all right.
Well, if you see on that one there,
okay.
you are
true.
reasonably visible there. You're kind of cut off on that one.
Yeah.
But yes. So we do have the smoke cam. We can see how many folks are viewing here. And then there's a chat kind of rolling where you occasionally get questions, things like that. So I want to acknowledge the Vatican flag. Yes, you can tell, even though I've got the background a little bit blurred, I'll go ahead and unblur it here for a minute. It's not the nicest studio setup. Basically, this is my podcast bunker.
Yes, podcast bunker. Yes.
But yes, I do have the Vatican flag here.
Your lighting is terrible. You know that, don't you?
Oh yeah, it is terrible. Yes, video is not a priority for me.
Oh, that's right. This is really your first video, isn't it? I mean, your first video, true endeavor or not?
Yeah. I mean, I started having a YouTube channel earlier this week for this purpose. So, well, I guess technically it was last week. It's been a long few weeks, but the papal funeral, I think may have. Actually, no, the papal funeral we just did on the Pontifex feed. So officially Popular History feed, which we're streaming to both. You can see there.
Okay.
And the comments kind of amalgamate. But yes, one thing that we're doing is adopt a cardinal. So, yep, see you, Trocanero.
I got a hi dad from Ash Music. There you go. So we're good.
Yeah. So personal greetings.
Yeah.
So I don't think you've adopted a cardinal yet. So
I told you I wanted.
Oh, who did you want?
I wanted Cardinal Garcia. Remember that conversation?
Oh, okay. No, absolutely not. Obviously.
You don't remember that conversation?
Oh, well, yes. That's because of that's the Conclave movie, though. So if you'd like to adopt a real cardinal and hand me an apple fritter.
There you go. Yes. Well, I don't know anybody who's available, to be honest with you. No offense to anybody, but
No, that's fine. That's why we have this list. So it's got all the names on it, and if you want to just pick one that's random, that's fine. Cardinal Dolan of New York is available if you want a U.S.
I'm not a huge fan of Cardinal Dolan.
All right.
Not that I have anything against him. I don't know him really well.
Mm-hmm. If you got like a country you might have an interest in.
I could take Bishop Earl Hernandez, couldn't I?
You could.
Or Fernandez,
Yeah. I've got a spot here for the people who are not cardinal electors, write-in candidates. Yep, because they could be elected pope.
I got that. Yes, as we discussed. I see black smoke.
Yeah.
Is that live?
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Black smoke.
Black smoke. That's what I see.
All right. So.
Well, that brings that to a short close, doesn't it?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
You made the black smoke appear.
There you go.
So what's interesting about this?
I do that in your life anyway.
Unexpectedly early black smoke. So I got to let Bree and Fry know. White smoke obviously would be blowing more things up, but I do want to alert them that we have black smoke. So this would be the black smoke for the morning, because they only do smoke twice a day. So I can go get some sleep. But yes, we were originally correct. Yes. They only do, well, okay. I have been wrong before, but I am comfortable enough with saying no more votes this morning. Now granted that's Rome time, so this morning only has 8 minutes left. But they do up to 2 votes in the morning, up to 2 votes in the afternoon, and they will do smoke, only after the 2 votes are done, if they're going to have 2 votes. Like if they elected a pope on the first ballot in the morning, then they would do white smoke, which is why I was tuned in earlier, because that would be a potential time window for a first ballot white smoke. So what this black smoke is saying is that they have had 2 ballots, or they decide they're just going to do 1 ballot this morning, which honestly I think is probably what happened, because there's a record number of cardinals participating. There's 133. The previous record, I want to say, was 118, because usually they're they're maybe close to the limit of 120 theoretically. But Pope Francis, honestly, like Benedict XVI, like John Paul II, they would have the ability to ignore. Yes, they would have the ability to ignore that canonical limit.
I like it.
Yeah. Learning all sorts of different functionality.
Yes.
But so what this is suggesting is that either they've decided that they're only going to do one ballot today, which I honestly think is slightly more likely, just given that the smoke was particularly late last night. It was, basically dark in Rome by the time that ballot was concluded.
So black sky, black smoke.
Yeah. And actually, I've just got the Vatican news feed going here for Vatican's going to be better for copyright things, but I guess AP's consolidated. They would occasionally have different angles, and it's interesting because the sky is different colored in the different angles. But yes, so black smoke. So we are not expected to see more smoke for another few hours. If the smoke does come earlier, it will be the white smoke, which is kind of the tricky part about this. So yes, they only put up the black smoke if they're done having votes for either that morning or that afternoon. They could have 2 votes in the morning. They could have 2 votes in the afternoon. But what the black smoke is telling is that they had either the 1 or the 2 ballots. Either way, they're not going to have more ballots this morning, and a pope was not elected. So they will, I believe, obviously fairly naturally it'd be lunchtime.
Yeah,
and
so
then
I was thinking lunch. They're
going
lunch,
back and then
gather
another round of balloting. I don't know their exact meal schedule, but bottom line, it's going to be a little while before we see any type of smoke. Now, if the smoke, the next available smoke window is going to be either white smoke or no smoke because of, as I explained, with the way the balloting goes, if they don't get a pope elected on that first ballot of the afternoon today, then they would
hold the ballots. So
they would hold the ballots, yes, and then burn the 2 together, either with the additives for white smoke or black smoke, depending on the results of that second vote, if there's no election on the second ballot. So we have either had 1 or 2 ballots this morning. If it were the 2 ballots, that would be pretty quick for the 2 ballots. So I honestly think it's 1 ballot. And they just decided not to do a second ballot today. So this conclave could go a little long just by nature of having a record number of cardinals participating. Again, 133, where the theoretical maximum is 120. But when Pope Francis made more than 120 cardinals, the implication was that he wanted them to vote.
Yeah.
Right. So the college, as they were in their preparatory meetings, would go ahead and sign off and say, yes, all of the cardinal electors are eligible. We're not going to be, fussing over that, which is good, because that was something I was worried about with, if there's ever a question of legitimacy, right, or anyone was to say that it wasn't done, according to the rules, then that could get like an anti-pope situation or schism, right? That would be bad, is what that's known as in the business. So yes, as the smoke racks up, by all means, Dad, if you want to keep live streaming, you're welcome to.
No, but you get at least one story if I'm going to come over here.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, let's go ahead and do the story while I do some apple fritters. So tell us a story.
I'm going to tell a story about you. Is that all right?
Tell a story about me. Okay.
Well, it's actually about the last time. So
just keep in mind, I can end the stream anytime.
I got it, and you can't edit it though, can you? Anyway, you're good. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, nothing. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I think this is a known, but I'm going to share a little bit about you personally. Last time I came over here, so the black smoke coming as soon as I got here leads me to the last time we had the significant event as soon as I got here, and that was the birth of your 5th child. Who we got the 6:07 a.m. call that said, "Hey, Dad, can you come over here and take care of the kids? I think Mary's in labor, and we're going to deliver pretty soon here. So do you mind coming over?" That was 6:07. Like 6:10, I got another call that said, "Hey, I need you over now. Like, get here now." So I said, "All right, I'm on my way." And as I
stop doing things that aren't getting here,
because I need you here right now. So as I came in, drove over, I only live about 5-8 blocks from here. And as I came driving into your neighborhood, coming north on your street, there's an ambulance coming south on your street. And so the ambulance pulls to his right, which is immediately in front of your house. I pull to my right, which is opposite side of the street from your house. And Greg comes out of the front porch and says, Dad, it's too late. Baby's here. I said, I'm here, Greg. And he goes, yep, so's the baby. And so we watched the paramedics go in, take care of the baby and mama, and all was good. But it was just like, well, as soon as grandpa shows up, something happens. So there you go. So black smoke this morning, but something happens. So there we go. Is that enough for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and any dedicated popular history listeners may register that story a bit, because that actually ended up, at least the 911 call, ended up on the podcast feed. So, yeah, so we are going to take a break. So we will reconvene after I get some sleep, and we'll end up with a guest. So I'm going to go ahead and code this as done here. That's actually, the full morning's slate. So yes, the black smoke means that they will not be having another ballot this morning. So, people can go about their day for a little bit and then reconvene in the evening. So evening balloting would, basically, we could reasonably expect we'll be back on Smokewatch starting at 5:30 Rome time. That's 11:30 if you're on like kind of North America, East Coast. I keep forgetting that there's that one part of Canada that goes out the other way, but New York time, Ohio time in my case is most relevant, 11:30. If you're in like California or in BC, like Bree, that'd be 8:30 a.m. And then otherwise, I know some Australia folks here with perhaps it's less of a reasonable time for them. But I'll let you guys do your time zone conversions from there. I will go ahead and drop another link to my favorite document in the chat. Oh, you're absolutely welcome for the stream. So the smoke that we had was black. So there will not be more balloting.
So for the sake of your mother and anybody else who might be picking up on the sidelines at this point, how do we get connected to this on a regular basis? Those of us who are not regular podcast users, not regular.
So subscribe to.
We're the election of the Pope is the biggest world event for all of us. Nothing else is that important. So
yeah. So subscribe to the Pontifex feed or the Popular History feed. These streams are going on both. So if you go on YouTube and search up Popular, right, that'll pull that up. Yeah. And then if you subscribe for that, you should get a notification if you're subscribed about when it goes live. So
very good.
Yeah. Originally I was thinking that, I'd be able to just use the same link for each one, but since we're doing it as kind of discrete streams instead of having it going 24/7, just that way you guys have a general idea of when to be tuning in. So glad I decided to go ahead and start this early, just in case we had the white smoke. The black smoke came earlier than expected, but at least we know it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you guys. Thank you for your thanks. You're still able to adopt a Cardinal, right? So if you want to drop a name in the comments, by all means. And if they aren't, and if they're already taken, then that's fine. You're not wasting it. So, all right, we'll go ahead and end the stream, but you got to hit all the buttons twice. Thanks, Lonesome Dockery.